Hey, what's up, guys? It's the Private Duelists Club here, also known as Jourdan Devereaux. SlimYGO has invited me back to his channel to give an update to my regional top 4 Runick Spellbook deck list from many months ago, because as you know, Spellbook of Judgment is back at 3, and at the moment, a lot of people are experimenting with the deck for the first time. And they're asking for updates and my thoughts and opinions on the place of the deck potentially in the new format and so on. And so today I'm just going to give you guys a brief summary of where my current thoughts are with Runick Spellbook. We'll be doing a main deck, an extra deck, and then as the format isn't defined, I don't think it's appropriate to provide a side deck yet and say like, oh, well, these are the cards that are definitely going to have you covered for the meta, because I mean we have a pretty decent idea of, you know, Fire King, Rescue Ace, Labyrinth, etc., but we don't know for sure what the meta is going to look like ultimately. But I will, however, provide some side deck recommendations. So as for the main deck itself, it's 42 cards, 5 monsters, and 37 spells. So as for the monsters themselves, I'm going to make the actual cards in the deck. I'm not going to focus too much on explanations for the engine. The engine is set in stone. You might see builds online on like Facebook groups or Discord or whatever that play different ratios. I've played this deck for months. I'm the only person who has ever I've gotten invites at multiple events, and I've talked to regional with this deck. I'm the only person that's ever done that. I'm the only person that's played this deck competitively to any success. I know what the ratios should look like. The ratios for your Runicks and your Spellbooks that I play here, minus exactly 1 card, which I'll tell you, are set in stone. So we have 3 of the Prophecy. Spellbook Edition of Prophecy, he's often known as Blue Boy. He's a normal summon, mandatory effect, search for a Spellbook. That mandatory effect part is... there's some technical play there. Whenever you summon him, even if you don't have a spellbook in the deck, you go Blue Boy effect, and oftentimes opponents will waste an Ash or an Imperm that might otherwise lock you out of the game in a grind game scenario where you've already, burned out of your judgment cards. Blue Boy effect, they think you still have like a knowledge in deck or something, especially if they don't know the ratios or they don't have very good resource management. That mandatory effect, more often than not, is a good thing. And then we have 2 Jourdan the Spiritualists. This looks like a black pendant. It is technically legally a black pendant, but it's a misprint that says Jourdan the Spiritualist on it. So I use it often at locals as my second Jourdan. Highest rarity Jourdan in the game, I would argue. And then this one, I actually did the sort of foiling on it myself, because there is no Jourdan in the TCG that is hollow, and the rest of the Spellbook core is hollow. So I created the sort of dual terminal Shatterfoil effect. All of that being said, so the Jourdan is your floodgate. It's not completely your win con. Your real win con is resource advantage and then milling the opponent out. But Jourdan blanks an opponent's turn, which in Yu-Gi-Oh is an eternity. And so by playing Protect the Jourdan, you can get so far ahead in advantage that by the time they do break it, it doesn't really matter anymore. You'll have just too many negates and pops and destructions for it to matter. Also, so the reason that we play 2 Jourdan is because on the surface, usually when people play something like a Brilliant Fusion engine, they play 1 of the engine requirement or 1 of the Garnet. So firstly, if you hard draw Jourdan, the vast majority of hands where you do that, you can no longer put a threatening presence on the board. There are lines where like you can discard for Hugin, and then make Celine and then bring it back, but you have to go through a lot of hoops, and you're assuming there's no interaction, and it's not good Yu-Gi-Oh! For 1, and for 2, you don't really care about drawing a singular Jourdan in a deck where every time you're going special summon Hugin discard, you can convert a blank card in your hand into a relevant piece of advantage via Fountain. What you do care about, however, is making sure that you don't draw all copies of Jourdan, because you want to make sure that you have one in deck for Judgment. At 1 copy, the chance that you draw all copies of Jourdan in your deck is 20%. At 2 copies, the chance drops to 1 out of 100. You have a 99% chance of not drawing every copy of Jourdan in your deck, and in fact, at 2 copies, the chance of drawing a singular copy of Jourdan is also only like 25% or something like that. And then also, Jourdan is like of all the engine requirements in the game, it's like the least bad one, because you summon it and then you dark hole their board anyway, and then they don't get the follow-up because they can't bring the monsters back because they can't special summon. So it's also like, it also doubles as like board breakers 7 and 8, or 6 and 7 rather, which is super nice to have as well, because you can like play into their board with runic spells, normal summon Jourdan, and be on your merry way. As for the spellbook ratio, we play 3 Judgment, 3 Secrets, 3 Knowledge. People were on 2 originally. I was on 2, maybe in my regional top list, I don't remember. You can play 2, it's fine, but you need a critical mass of spellbooks in your deck so that when you're drawing off of your fountain and your knowledge and blah blah blah, you don't draw into all of them. I'm convinced that just the 3rd knowledge is needed. But more importantly than that though, ideally what you want to do is you want to go knowledge, chainlink 1, spellbook of judgment, chainlink 2, and then send the judgment for the knowledge, because it is a spellbook card which is on the field. I mean, people misunderstand what designated for destruction means sometimes. It is perfectly valid to send this, and it sends as effect, not cost. So you don't check for the card that you want to send until resolution. And so this lets you convert the judgment into a free card, as well as getting the activation off. And then also, if you go knowledge first, that often baits an ash, because people don't know how the deck works and blah, blah, blah. The 3rd knowledge is needed. As for the final 2 spellbook cards, we have a single fate and a single wisdom. You don't need more, especially with you used to want to play double fate and an eternity because you needed to loop it over the course of multiple turns to protect Jourdan. Now with spellbook of judgment at 3 and with the existence of Sleipnir, you search for wisdom instead of fate, because this protects against Imperm or Book of Moon or similar cards. You sleep near the monster on their turn, so you don't have to search for the original fate. You can just add it in the end phase with Judgment. So playing these 2 gives you the flexibility to dictate which one you search based on your how your end board is going to look, and it has better coverage against potential threats that people will try to use to pop your board. Versus if you play strictly 2 Fate, which is a bit superfluous because you're already playing things like Droplet and Econ and Sleipnir to deal with monsters. There's just a bigger mass of things that say you don't get to attack my Jourdan than there were when I topped that regional. And so now this is all you need to play. Very lean, very svelte, you could say. Nothing else is needed. Nothing else is needed. For the runics, you play 2 Fountain, 3 Tip, 3 Slumber. This is like your God card because it protects Jourdan from battle or destruction. 3 Flashing Fire. Then we have the 3 Freezing Curses, the 3 Destruction. I don't play any of sort of the one-of runic spells because I just simply don't have the space, and the deck plays so much draw and search that you're always going to hit the sort of 2 runic spell combination you need to get a Fountain for 2 and a Hugin Search Fountain regardless. So in this new build with 3 Upstart and so on, you don't need to play sort of the bad ones. They make milling them out a little bit easier, but as long as your resource management is good, they're probably not going to. They have like 2 cards in deck anyway. They're not winning. So as your brick, you play Ghost Trick Shot. You need this for the combo to make UDF. Utopic Draco Future is really important. I see a lot of builds on Facebook groups not playing this. You have to play it, and the reason you have to play it is because if you have a good hand, if you have a hand where you can get to 3 spells without the activation of Shot, you make the UDF first, and then you activate Spellbook of Judgment, and you protect the Spellbook of Judgment from Ash, therefore protecting your end board. That's supremely important in this deck, and if you don't play Ghost Trick Shot, your ceiling goes down very quickly and very far. And even if you hard draw it, it's not the worst Garnet in the game because it's not completely dead. In bad hands like that, there are creative things you can do where like you pop your own Ghost Trick So Cute boss, you bring it back with Ghost Trick Shot, then you and then you have a spellcaster on board and another spell activation. So you convert the shot into like a useful card in the end phase. You convert it into a spellbook, which isn't terrible. So even in that scenario, it's not the worst thing in the world. We play 3 Upstart. You have to play 3 Upstart, I think. I was playing the single Upstart before. The reason why it's so nice in here is that you have so much draw and search, and you're not playing hand traps. Runick Spellbook is not a hand trap deck. It is a board breaker deck. And what you can do with Upstart is that it basically lets you, when you draw 5 cards, we'll just say this awful hand is your other 4. Okay, whatever. You hold the Upstart. You can activate Destruction, discard for Hugin, search the fountain, and then you can activate Upstart, and then maybe you draw into like, Spellbook of Secrets or something. Upstart Goblin allows you to increase the probabilities that you see your key cards, and by playing Upstart Goblin in a 42 or 43 card deck, you also decrease the probability that you see your bad cards, because you can hold the Upstart until you've done your Ghost Trick shot and you've searched your fountain and so on, and then you activate it, and you have 0 probability of drawing this because it's already out of your deck. And you've also already decreased the probability of you seeing it in your opening hand. I think people have so far underestimated, in decks like this that don't need Prosperity, where Prosperity takes precedence because it's the most broken legal card in the game. People underestimate the usefulness if you're not playing hand traps and you're not playing Prosperity, which that Venn diagram is very small. People underestimate the usefulness of just playing 3 Upstart to allow you to spread your deck out and also hold the last draw until you've comboed to increase your chance of seeing things like your side deck, Silver Bullets, and so on. Then for non-engine, we play 2 Econ, 3 Droplet. You need a bomb that just like goes into boards. And the other nice thing about Droplet is you can set it, send a spell, and then you can have the attack of the monster attacking into Jourdan. Enemy controller lets you switch it to defense, obviously. There's other things you can do, like tributing the Jourdan, so you can put your special summoning back online and then make a Selene, and then Selene plus Jourdan's an FTK because Selene has like a million counters and you just keep special summoning it if they run it over. So there's little technical play things like that where this particular set of non-engine goes really well with the deck. The only downside of these is that they are only good into things like Impermanent Veiler when you're going second. An alternative card that you can consider instead of the enemy controller is actually Offerings to the Doomed. That is particularly good in here. And it sounds funny, it sounds silly because it's an old card and people think it's cope or whatever. It's particularly good in here because you're always drawing 2 off of Knowledge that you searched off of Judgment and another 3 off of the Fountain anyway during your turn. So you don't need the 6th card from your standard draw phase. You will survive because you're cycling 6 cards every turn throughout the course of the duel anyhow. But more importantly, compared to something like Book of Moon or Book of Eclipse, if you go Book of Eclipse on Hugin, you put it face down and you've locked yourself out of your EMZ. If you go Offerings to the Doomed on Hugin, you send it to Graveyard, it goes back to the extra deck, you dodge the Veiler, and you get your Fountain Search. And they're always going to Veiler or Imperm the discard for Hugin. So that's another possibility if you want something that's a little bit more anti-hand trap in the Econ spot. But I like the way that Econ plays into boards better. And Runick it doesn't struggle going second if you draw the right combination of Flashing Fire, Destruction, Droplet, etc. But it requires a lot of like tit for tat, kind of, surprise, gotcha, quick play spells. And enemy controller just suits that a little bit better than Offerings to the Doomed, I think. Just tokens. These are called cigarette cards. These are really nice. I actually just wanted to point these out. These are like from like the 1930s and 40s. They were given out as like the original trading cards, the original collectible cards back in the day with cigarettes. And they just detail like different sort of lifestyle things that people used to partake in. So that's kind of cool. As for the extra deck with the Link monsters, we have Selene, SP Little Knight. SP can also be a Nightmare Phoenix. They basically do the same thing. The most important thing of that is that it lets you get rid of floodgates, things like Anti-Spell. We play 2 Hugin, that's all you really need. Sleipnir, Munin, Gary. And then we play Typhon because it lets you go second to the boards. We play the UDF combo. It's really important, the Ghost Trick package. We play an Armored Kappa. Armored Kappa is really good because it is a Waboku. So if you go hard draw the Ghost Trick Shot, but you don't need to do the funky So Cute boss line to get to 3 spell activations, you make this instead, and with Armored Kappa and Sleipnir, you can blank 2 battle phases just using your end board without even having to dig into like your fates and your slumbers and so on. So it's really good resource management to make an Armored Kappa stick to the field. And it's better than what I used to play. I used to play Muckraker. It's better than Muckraker because it frees up the EMZ as well. It's just a very good card to have in the spot. It's one of those ones where you don't go into it every game, but you're happy to have it. It's better to have than not have, just objectively speaking, in the extra deck. And then finally, we have probably the most important card in the extra deck other than literally UDF or Hugin, and that is Mannequin Cat. Mannequin Cat lets you, if your opponent Veilers you, if your opponent Drolls you, or your opponent Shifters you, they all have a couple of things in common. What they have in common is that they are spellcasters. And the ability to go into Mannequin Cat, bring back the hand trap, and then punish them by making a Jourdan anyway, is just absolutely insane. Anyway, so this extra deck, though, is completely set in stone. I wouldn't change this. Don't mess around with it. Typhon SP are expensive. They can be replaced with like a 3rd Hugin and then a Nightmare Phoenix, and that's fine. Other than that, this is, this just is what it is. I mean, you have to play all of these. And then the same thing with the main deck. Don't mess with the runic ratios. You can add in like a Smiting Storm or a Droplet or a Dispelling if you want and make it 16. You can drop the upstarts. You can drop a Wisdom if you'd like, though I think that's a mistake for the reasons I've already stated. You can drop 2 Econ and the Droplets and 3 upstarts and play a different combination of non-engine to get you up to like 40 or 42 if you want. There's a little bit of experimentation around the edges, but all of the sort of ratios and the play style and everything we've talked about today are basically set in stone. There is no other way to play this deck, and you're not going to reinvent the wheel by playing things like Magician's Souls that don't actually add anything to what you're doing. So as for non-engine, some things to consider for the upcoming format. I really like Triple Tactics Thrust and Evenly Matched going into the new format. They can bring them back during the end phase, but that's fine because like you search Fate and then you fade away one of them and then you Flashing Fire on their turn the other one and so on. Like you have options going into like dealing with a monster or two is not a huge deal with this deck. But what is a huge deal is just dealing with, a really mixed up board with both back row and front row. And so Evenly helps simplify the game state and you don't care about the battle phase anyway. So having Thrust and Evenly Matched in this deck, they just go together really well with sort of what you're trying to do. Bestials might be okay. I'm unsure on this one at the moment. We're going into like a fire format for sure. There's something to consider. And then you'll win aside Ash and Bell for Labyrinth. Or something else you can consider is Psyframe Gear Epsilon. This is probably better than specifically Ash or Bell for Labyrinth in this deck, purely because of the fact that you can also side it in going second if Anti-Spell becomes a popular piece of side deck non-engine. Kurikara is really nice in this deck as a board breaker because you can go tit for tat with their board using your 1-for-1 runic spells, and then you can drop this and bring back like a Baron or something like that. So you wipe their board. It's like that bomb at the end of the runic plays. It's really nice. Magic Deflector is probably going to be a pretty good card going into the format, so you might want to play one with like the Thrust package. And then something that I've always played in my runic decks, pretty much universally, is 3 Dogwood, just because the deck takes so damn long to kill that if you get to like game 3 and with like 10 minutes left, you're not milling them out. This is just an extra win con besides Munin. It's also really nice because something that's underrated is that when you have like 8 or 10 minutes left going into time, if you're going second, that's a really, really bad spot to be in because you need to push for damage through a board. Dogwood becomes maxi in those scenarios. Anyways, that is the video. Do feel free to let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I will reply. Also feel free to check out my own YouTube channel. I'll be uploading a regional Winamat first place branded Chimera deck list from a couple of weeks ago on that channel shortly. And in the future, I play a lot of decks like this. I've topped in the past year with decks like Marincess, Spellbook obviously many times, Necroz, I play a bunch of rogue decks. I'm one of those players that plays rogue decks, but I play them competitively, and I try to make them work in the current meta, and I think that that is a niche that not a lot of people fill. So I think that if you subscribe to my channel, if you're into unique deck building and deck theory and all that, you might enjoy some of what I have to say. Otherwise, I wish you all the best, and thank you for watching.